What about raking strings technique?
Yeah, that's another right-handed technique, and what that consists of basically of when you rake fingers across, similar to a garden rake, which is probably where they got the name from.
Exactly.
Actually, I didn't know what it was called until Tim Bogart, who I stole the idea from in my early days. Tim, well, I am as well now. He's my total hero on bass, and he did tons of raking techniques. And when I first started bass and listened to him, I realized that I had to be a finger player because there's no way you could do those with a pick. Those sweeping techniques are popular now, and they're very close to it, but there's still a lot of things you can do raking that you can't do with a pick. So I stole it from Tim Bogart, so I had to give him credit for that. But it's basically a way to slip your fingers over the strings and get a whole bunch of notes out of just one pass, because your fingers are staggered, and they kind of catch at different times. So you get that. Now that particular move there, that's a four finger. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So you can really get some wailing, a whole bunch of flailing notes coming out of there like that.
This seems like a good way to build right-hand speed.
Yeah, well, the speediest things I do are probably the raking stuff, because it's just so many notes whip by. If I ever had to go back and transcribe or figure out what it was, I'm doomed, because I don't even know what half the notes are that sneak by there. But that's definitely one of the secrets of getting a lot of speed out of the instrument, if that's your goal, to be a speedy player. But it also adds a fluidity to your speed, because things are flowing and raking and being pulled across in the same direction and stuff like that. And it makes speed for speed's sake is pointless, but if it's fluid and musical,
exactly, in context.
Which is where raking kind of comes in. It makes it a little bit more musical, more rhythmic. Stuff like that.
Would you say between the three-finger technique, the raking, and then the four-finger, you have your basic favorite right-hand patterns?
Yeah.
That you use 90% of the time?
Pretty much, yeah. The only other thing I do is the tapping stuff, which, that's another story. But, yeah, that's basically it. The most important thing for anybody, I think, is that thumb locked, strap length, all those little crazy things that you would never think of.
All little variables.
Yeah, locked in there, good spot, hands in the right position, playing with a lot of strength to get a really good, strong, hard, solid callus, because that'll have a lot to do with the tone of your playing. So however hard your fingertip is how easy it slips over the strings. I always have used rotosound strings, and they're very rough strings. They're tough on the frets, but for tone, I can't play anything else really. And they grab your finger real well. So there's a real catch to it. So there's a percussive attack at the note. Now, pick bass players got an advantage because they can get their attack from that pick sound.
Exactly.
Where finger players, you got to get a big, hard, solid callus to kind of mimic that, and give you that attack. Producers will drive you crazy and ask you to play with a pick if you don't have it. So warn you in advance. Make sure you get that callus up there and save yourself some trouble later.
What can you tell us about recovery muscles?
Most of your moves you do on bass have to do with pulling your hands in towards your thumbs, towards the thumb on the back of the neck. You're pushing down on the strings to push them up against the frets, or you're plucking up towards your thumb when you're plucking from the right hand. So it's all that pull muscle. You almost never see anyone working on the muscle to get your finger back into the position where it can pull again. And that's the whole idea of exercising recovery muscles. In other words, it's not the muscle that you use to pull in. It's a muscle you use to push out. So there's some kind of rubber band thing somebody sent me one time that you can exercise your hands with. But you'll find if you push up against, try to lift your finger up and oppose against it like that.
Yes.
And each finger you'll find is very, very weak, where down, of course, is very strong. So if you exercise that muscle, you'll find that 50% of your moves is recovery to get to the next move. So when you press down on a note, you got to lift up to get to the next note. When it comes to doing something fast, you're going to have to get up and down fast. So you're going to find that by exercising your recovery muscle, as crazy as it might seem, it actually helps a lot in your speed and accuracy and the fluidity of your hands. It's just a thing that came out of nowhere one time, and I started working on my recovery muscles, and I found that every time I did, my playing took a leap into a little bit more exactness and a little less slop that I normally have a lot of. So, but the recovery muscles is kind of people always, that's one of the things that gets overlooked easily.
And a trill would be a good way to develop that.
Yeah, you could, or just put your finger on there and oppose it and push up against it a bit, so that you're, pushing against your finger there a little bit.
You've played with some of the greatest technical players, guitar-wise, of our time, in a close band situation or touring. Where do you think technique is going for the 90s? It's been developed heavily in the 80s.
Well,
what do you think is going to happen?
I think it's peaked and it's reached total overkill to the point where it's technique for technique's sake, which is a total waste and a total, it's a horrible situation for music to be in. Because I come from a song era, song playing, Three Dog Night, Young Rascals, all these bands that had great songs, and this is stuff. I always played in a band that had a lot of vocals in my early days, and so songwriting to me is really essential. So now a lot of songs are built around just technique. Well, let's find a song where we can fit all this in because we want everybody to hear this technique. It's just like, the new band I have, Mr. Big, we're writing things exactly the opposite. We're writing a song, getting a piece of music down that's really where we think it's at, and then adding playing to it, because that's how my playing evolved. We go up and play, Three Dog Night songs, Joy to the World, in the early days of bar band copy tunes, and, we'd be flying all over the place in them, and having fun with it, because once you got a good song, a good foundation, then you take off. It's gone the opposite nowadays. I just think a lot of people have kind of lost touch with that, because everybody's wowed by the hot kid on the block, and that's real cool, but, it really doesn't have the dimension and the staying power that a song does. A song is everything.
Do you feel also that as a musician it's important to have a lot of song repertoire in your background?
Oh, yeah.
To create and to improvise better and feel comfortable?
Everybody, when I was playing in a bar band for so many years, I used to get these elitists that talk about playing original material. You got to be original. Well, we were always a copy band. But as it turns out, that was like, the Beatles.
Yeah.
There was an original bone in their bodies, when they first, started. They were playing all the Servicemen's Club in Germany, and even their first record was a bunch of copy tunes on it. Please, Mr. Postman, Twist and Shout, all that stuff.
Roll Over Beethoven.
Yeah, and that's where you really get your chops. Just like you learn other people's solos, by learning other people's songs and playing and performing and getting an audience to react to them. That's where you learn. The basis. Everybody talks so much about technique and all these things. Why are we doing it? Are we doing it to solo for the rest of our lives? We're doing it to get up in front of people and perform and make something happen with an audience, or have a record that touches many people. And you're not going to do that necessarily with lots of soloing. You're going to do that with a song. And the whole purpose of being in music for me is to get up on stage and entertain people. It's not necessarily just sit there and solo all night long. That's crazy. So many people get into that too much now. And it's just, I think if people just kind of focused on their real goal in music, which should be to be up in front of people performing, doing something that's going to touch a lot of people and have a common ground between you and a lot of other people, I think then you get back to songwriting, So
communication.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the old days of playing in bars, we had to make our living by getting people in the bar, staying all night, buying drinks, picking up girls, whatever they did, but they had to get there and stay there. And the only way we did that was by playing the best songs we could find from every band, doing the best way possible. And that was like the best training ground ever. It has a lot to do with my playing, my techniques, my whole point of view, because as I said, the foundation of it is not soloing technique, and unfortunately it's bad that guitar has gone that way, but it'll be even worse if more bass players do that. And I feel in a lot of ways have created some monsters out there, and that a lot of guys, the first thing they pick up the bass, they start doing hammer-ons. That's great, that's really neat, but if out of 500 bands that you could conceivably get in, maybe 10 of them you'll be able to take a solo in. Of those 10, maybe 20 or 30 seconds. So here's guys devoting their whole lives to all this stuff. Well, they'll actually only be able to do 20 or 30 seconds of it live ever,
And what about the groove?
That's where it's at. I mean, that's, I learned about playing drums. I used to, in the old bands, used to rehearse with just the drummer alone. We used to learn all our songs and just going just bass and drums. Just, no guitar, no vocals, just learning grooves, learn how to work with drums, pound along with them, stay in time. And we always had to get audiences dancing in the early days, so we always had to make it move. We always had to make it groove and slide, and we were always really successful. Tallis back in Buffalo, like we held every attendance record at every club. They stopped counting after a while. It was like for over a decade, or from 72 to 84 5. I mean, Tallis was around in Buffalo, so we certainly cut our teeth on that.